Stay in all the chizik that we gain, bring nachad ruach to Hashem Yitbarach, serve as a zchut for Klal Yisrael, and invoke rachamei shamayim for everyone in need of yeshuot. Amen. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see everyone. Welcome. Okay, so tonight we have a very insightful shiur talking about spiritual eating. I just felt like I wanted to talk about Tu B Shvat, but yet didn't want to focus on the same things that I spoke about last year. So I came up with this new angle, with Hashem's help, on the whole idea of spiritual eating. I'm saying brachas differently. I'm looking at food differently. I almost feel like like I see things in the food, and I have to be careful about the way that I interact with food items. So I hope everyone will feel the same. Breaking off from the shalom within and without tonight, and just talking about really bringing about the tikkun be'ezrat Hashem on Tu B Shvat, so that we will really be able to, because that is the day that Arizal teaches us, the day to be able to really give us a jump start, a push to really be able to fix our the way that we approach food. So even though it's very chilly outside and appears, of course, that winter, which is still within us, especially in the States with their freezing weather, Tu B Shvat teaches us something very, very beautiful. Everything has its lesson in Emuna, but Tu B Shvat teaches us this special message of what you see is not what really is. And the whole idea of Tu B Shvat being a chag that we celebrate, when in essence on the outside nothing coincides with what we're celebrating. We're celebrating rebirth, we're celebrating renewal, we're celebrating growth, and outside the branches are bare, no leaves, no sign of birth, no sign of rejuvenation, nothing. Just like it was yesterday, just like it will be tomorrow. And the whole idea of this is a profound Emuna lesson, that don't look at what your eyes see. Don't look at what creation is showing you. And I read something very, very beautiful this week in Rabbi Pinchas Winston Shlita, his Dvar Torah on Beshalach. He wrote something so amazing. And he said, Hashem, so to speak, purposely had Bnei Yisrael entrapped on all sides before they entered the sea. To the right were cliffs, to the left were mountains and forests, and the back were the Egyptians, and the front was the sea. What is this? You're bringing us here to die. And Hashem did it purposely. Hashem wanted to put Bnei Yisrael, before they received the Torah, He wanted to put Bnei Yisrael in front of a situation that was hopeless and helpless. No chance on Pi Hateva, in the ways of the nature, that they're going to get out there alive. He purposely put us in that situation, a pre-lesson before we receive the Torah, and He says, I don't care what you see on the outside. It doesn't matter if you feel hopeless and pushed into the corner. I will redeem you. I brought you here. I paid, so to speak, in cash for you. Hashem said, don't be a slave to the Mitzrayim, be my slave. We're today considered Avdei Hashem. We're the slaves of Hashem. But wouldn't everyone want to be a slave like we are? We get to be a slave. Okay, so we have to do certain things that we're not too crazy about. But at the end, what slave gets a reward? The slave does what he has to do, but he doesn't get a reward from his master. Hashem's saying, you're going to give to me, you're going to be a good servant of mine, I'm going to reward you for that. What a beautiful alternative, quote, so to speak, than being a slave in Mitzrayim. So Hashem put us in that position. He says, I paid for you. I wanted you to become my, quote unquote, slaves. I paid for you. I'm taking care of you. If I bought you, quote unquote, if I bought you, be calm and rest assured. That's it. I've got you. I've got you on my shoulders. I'm taking care of you. And so Hashem put us in that position so that we would see that there is no chance of getting there alive, out there alive. And Hashem actually said, what was the famous mishpat? Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, ma titzak elai, daber el bnei Yisrael vayisau. What are you yelling at me for, Moshe Rabbeinu? What are you standing there for? Tell Moshe, tell Bnei Yisrael, walk. Hello? See? Don't think I can get through it? Walk. There's a time to pray, there's a time to act. Hashem says, Tu B Shvat. It looks and appears like everything is dead, chilly, stormy. Nothing's happening. But look how beautiful. The letter in the mystical Sefer Yetzirah from Avraham Avinu, The letter of the month Tevet is Ayin. The letter of the month Shvat is Tzadik. Together it spells Etz. What does that mean? The seed that germinates under the ground in Tevet, it begins to rot and decompose and get all of the things that it needs in order to bring up eventually that nourishment to the tree. We actually only celebrate it, not even see it, but we celebrate it when? In Shvat. So the 2 months together, which apparently are the coldest, most dreadful months of the year, where we hibernate and we're like a bear hibernating in the cave, and we don't see any chance of us being able to, go out of this dreary corner. Here it is. Look what's going on underneath, and that's the lesson of Tu B Shvat. That's what Hashem is telling us. Was there something else? And so Rabbi Pinchas Winston says something beautiful. He says, you know what? The only thing Hashem per se is guilty of, he's guilty of, quote unquote, of one thing. Such a beautiful, amazing Devar Torah. It was like honey dripping from my mouth when I read this. He says, Hashem is only guilty in one thing. The fact that he's secretive about the miracles. The fact that he knows everything and he doesn't let us know. That's the only thing we can actually come to Hashem and say, maybe, God forbid, he's guilty of. Because really, he does everything for us. So much more than we can even fathom. And that is one of the lessons of Tu B Shvat, is to know that Hashem is working to bring our redemption. Everything that's going on, every little aspect of our lives right now, everything is heading us towards the revelation that will be there. And none of us want to be caught at that moment of that revelation and say, oh, if I only knew. So we're here to say and learn, all of us together, that let's know it. Let's know it. Because just because we can't fathom the redemption, just because we are stuck in a corner and how am I ever going to get out of this situation? How am I ever going to be able to pay up? I mean, $50,000, I make, $3,000 a month. How am I going to ever pay off my bills? I'm never going to get out of this. Just because we can't fathom the solution doesn't mean Hashem can't. Like I said, that's the only thing we can hold him guilty of, is the fact that he's not, quote unquote, letting us know what his plans are. And I always say this, whenever I feel like I'm dead in the corner, I don't know what I'm going to do, I always say, Hashem has a plan, I just don't know about it. That's my favorite saying. Hashem has a plan, I just don't know what it is. But yeah, there's a plan. There's definitely a plan. That coincides to exactly what we're learning. So they stood, Bnei Yisrael, in front of the sea. And they're crying, and they're fleeing, and they're scared. They don't know what's going in front of them. And the Torah teaches us at that moment when a person is scared and worried and crying and fleeing for their lives, wanting to get out of that situation that they're currently in, that's the time to take inventory. That's the time when you savor your depletion, you savor that void that you have in your life at that moment, and you swallow your pride and you reflect back and you say, you know what? Till now, who took care of me? Till now, who was there and took me out of every situation that I went through? It's only Hashem. And that's what it means, Shira. I wrote this on last week's Daily Dose. It was so beautiful that I feel like I have to repeat it again. Shira. When was Am Yisrael, when were they able to burst out in beautiful song to Hashem? When? Before, we are always under the assumption that they came out and sang as they were crossing the sea. They went and they sang before the sea even split. Before the Yeshua came, they even sang. The word Shira has the same root, same association as the word Shua, a row, a line in the Hebrew language. What does that mean? When we can live with Emuna Shlema. When we see everything as a direct line from Shemayim to this world, a shua, a line, a direct link. Hashem, you're there. We're here. Line, pipe, right? What is pipe? Is it sino? Switch the letters around. It's ratzon. When a person has a ratzon to see the sino, when we have the desire to see Hashem, that shua, that line will create such passion within us that we'll be able to turn on that music and sing. And that's what happened to Bnei Yisrael. They stood in front of there and they took inventory of themselves. They said, wait a minute. They reflected on all the plagues. Oh, wait a minute, look at all that Hashem did for me. Hashem, of course. He promised that. He did, he delivered. Let's sing. And with that song, the sea opened. That's Emuna. That's what it's about. That's why when we talk about the ability through all our emotional healing, workshop about the idea of diverting the thought, about turning on the music when you're down in the lowest of lowest and just singing, it's because that is the kli, that is the vessel that brings about the Yeshua. When they sang in front of the sea, and and that's when the sea opened. What lesson are we learning in history? The lesson that we're learning is when you just sing, when you create that kli for the bitachon of Hashem, Hashem will send the Yeshua. Just from the mere fact of the Emuna.
It's the awareness or it's the singing itself?
It's both. You need it in mind and you need it in action. You need it both. It starts with awareness, and if it doesn't, then you have to. If just like a person wants to come back to tshuva, I don't feel like keeping Shabbos. It's boring for me. Just keep Shabbos. The heart, right? We spoke about this with the act. I don't know if you were here. Action and thought. Sometimes the action brings the thought, and sometimes the thought brings the action. But you need both. You 100% need both. And if it comes first from action, then the thought will go. And if it comes from the thought, then the action will go. But it definitely, you need both. Now, let's look at the organ of the month. The organ of the month, why are we talking about spiritual eating? Look how beautiful the Torah is. The organ of the month is the korkavan. It's the stomach. The organ of the month in Chodesh Shvat is the korkavan. It's the stomach. Let's look at the stomach. The whole idea of the stomach, and we're going to talk soon about the spiritual and emotional aspects of the stomach.
Every month has an organ?
Huh?
Every month has an organ?
Every month has an organ, yes. Every month has that organ to specifically work on. So this month, it's the korkavan. What is the whole idea? Look how beautiful you learn Emuna, and so we're going to see from the korkavan. The idea is, when I eat food, I'm digesting the food. What does it say in Mishlei? It says that the belly of the evil, the belly of the wicked always feels empty. What does the belly of the wicked mean? God forbid, nothing evil. We don't talk about wicked. We will say something negative. A person who eats. Now look how we eat. We take the spoon and we eat. Now I'm still chewing. Hopefully we're still chewing. If not, we're swallowing the food. But hopefully we're chewing our food before we're eating. We're chewing our food. What are we doing? That spoon is already in the plate, picking up the next one. Or playing around with the food and seeing what part I want next. To some degree, we're living that pasuk. That negativity. I'm eating. For crying out loud. Enjoy what you're eating right now. Digest that which is in your mouth. Your stomach hasn't even noticed that you sent it down food and you're already looking to feed it more. So the whole idea is that the stomach needs to digest the food in its time. Not be impulsive in eating, but to really digest, give us the time to digest the food that's coming down. And soon, like I said, we're going to see amazing insights how this ties into our spiritual and emotional. I mean, even if I wanted to get away from, emotional healing, I couldn't, because stomach, has so much to do with emotional, digesting emotions. So the idea of a tzaddik, which happens to be the letter of the month, a tzaddik, which we said before. The idea of a tzaddik is a tzaddik, what does he do when he eats? How does he eat? He eats only for his soul. He eats only to give him koach to do avodat Hashem. That's the only reason why a tzaddik eats. He doesn't look at the bodily gratification. He doesn't care if he's happy with what it tastes like or doesn't have. You hear all these stories of the tzaddikim that they used to eat food that had tons of salt in order not to hurt the woman's feeling in the kitchen and so on and so forth. How are you able to eat food, or drink tea where someone accidentally put salt in it instead of sugar? And the tzaddik never mentioned anything about it, but he did it just, he overcame. Because for him it was just like sugar, because he doesn't know what taste is. He doesn't care what taste is. He eats for the purpose of nourishment. So that's the whole idea of stomach. We're going to go back to it, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the whole idea of the tzaddik, and the whole idea of a man being like a tree. So let's just first talk about how the tzaddik and the tree all comes in. So what is the tzaddik? The tzaddik has his feet well grounded, well in the ground. Just like the root system, which is very complex, something that's hidden from the eye, that holds that tree. We think we're looking at the tree, we see a big trunk, that tree will never fall. The wind, the erosion, whatever, they're not affected by the weather going on outside, but that's not true. The only thing that's keeping that tree strong is the root system down on the bottom. If that tree had no roots, I don't care how big that trunk of the tree is, it's going to fall over when there's a big wind. The idea is that tzaddik is like an etz hasadeh. You see this big trunk, and you see his maisim, and you see all the fruits, and you see everything, but you don't see the Emuna. You don't see the Emuna, the complex system that he works on in himself under the ground that keeps him steady. That's what allows him to spiritually grow. Without the roots, the trunk wouldn't grow. So the Torah teaches us that the trunk of the tree is the path of our spiritual growth. We grow, sometimes we're straight, sometimes we're off to the side, sometimes the branch falls. That's the path of spiritual growth, is this trunk, and hopefully we have a steady trunk that will be able to allow us to be, that much sturdy on the outside, and then you've got the branches going around. But really, what's the most important part of the tree? What's the most important part of the tree? I answered the wrong answer when I read this.
The root, no?
Well, it's important, sure. No, but the whole purpose, what's the purpose? That's not the most important. What's the fruit? No, go further, which is what we're going to learn.
The seed.
Thank you. I didn't get that. The seeds. Because the whole idea of the seeds, which we discard, the whole idea of the seeds is that it allows for reproduction. It allows for regrowth. That's the part we throw away. That's the part that's an annoyance. Who wants to eat grapes with seeds? Give me seedless grapes. Give me seedless watermelon. I don't want the seeds. Let me be. I want to enjoy my fruit. That's this world. I want to enjoy my fruit. I don't want the peel. I don't want the seed. I want to enjoy the fruit, right? That's what it's there for. And so we're going to see how the fruit is an illusion. But I'm telling you, this sure is going to, it blew me away. So the whole idea is, again, the trunk and the branches are the spiritual growth, the Torah, the mitzvot, the masim tovim that we do, and yet the fruit is the talmidim, that positive environment and influence that I give to others, that they can enjoy that which I worked so hard to do. But the real vital importance of it all is the seed, is to keep that seed, because without that seed there'd be no more fruit. I'd be able to enjoy it, it would be great, fun, dandy, but I wouldn't be able to enjoy anything more after that part. And we see this in the word Adam. Adam from the word Adama. What is a man? A man is a person, the true epitome of a man is someone who sows the ground, who throws away the thorns, discards all the weeds, takes greater and utter importance to make sure that the ground is cleaned, and works and nurtures and waters that ground. So that's the Adam, that's us. It's a matter of us taking the potential of the earth and making it rise and making it produce and helping it to grow. The sense of the month. The sense of the month of Tu B Shvat, is Emuna, is enjoyment. Sorry, I'm so into Emuna. Is enjoyment. It's happiness. It's tasting life. As the pasuk in Tehillim reads, Ta'amu vera'u ki tov Hashem. Taste and see that Hashem is good. Taste? Yes, taste. When you have a taste of life, when you could taste life, you enjoy life. When you digest life properly, when you give yourself time to eat that food, spiritually, what am I doing when I'm eating? I'm taking that food, I'm breaking it down, I'm mellowing on the flavors, I'm appreciating the work that went into the preparation of that food, and I'm digesting all the gifts that Hashem gives me in my life. That's the spiritual aspect of eating. So that food, now in every food particle, there's the good and there's the negative. So in the food that we eat, the good part is the nutrients, right, that nourish our body. The bad parts of it, of course, are the bad items that are in from the junk food and all the rest, all the negative ingredients that we unfortunately eat. as well as in the spiritual aspect of food. In the spiritual aspect of food, there's also the holy sparks, and there's the klipot, the husks. Now, we spoke about this once before, but we'll just say this again. The whole idea of the holy sparks is that in the beginning, when Hashem created the world, He created this great enormous light, and the light, the world wasn't able to contain this light, and so a lot of the parts of creation shattered, and there were sparks that were sent and scattered all over the world. And the Tanya and the Arizal and everyone, all the big Kabbalists bring down that that's the whole purpose of life. It's for us to redeem. It's 288 sparks, big sparks in this world. We're supposed to redeem them. And each one has their personal ones, then there's collective ones. But the bottom line is every time, we also mentioned this, but we'll mention it again, every food item, every part of the flour that went into this cake and that cake, the chilba, the hummus, the pomegranate, the milk, the cups, the plates, everything on this table, whoever partakes of that particular, why am I looking at this cake and I don't like that piece, I like that piece? It's because I have a craving for that on a soul level, and I realize that the redemption of part of my sparks lies in that piece of cake, and so I have to redeem that. Why do I have an aversion and a craving to certain food items? Why? Why do I feel like I love eggplant, but I hate red peppers? Because it's indicative of exactly where my redemption lies. If I have this aversion towards eggplant, my tikkun has nothing to do with eggplant. There's nothing in eggplant that could bring about my redemption. There's no holy sparks there waiting for me.
That's why people have an addiction to food.
Okay, so that has to do with the Yetzer Hara. We're going to talk soon about how the organs entice us to want to eat, for the sake of physicality, not for the sake of soul. That's
to do with the redemption and all these things.
It has, of course it has to do with the redemption, but we have to also control it, because it really depends. If it's really not good for us, then, usually if you have a craving to something, if you have a craving to eat something very, very sweet, I have to have chocolate every day, I have to have, generally it means that it's your physicality that's talking to you, because a tzaddik doesn't have cravings for food. He doesn't, the fact that he's averse to it, or he feels like dafka having this orange means his tikkun lies there. But if I feel like having a piece of chocolate, which I know, there's enough information out there to tell me that chocolate's not good for me. Maybe it's, dark chocolate. I know we could always find something that, we could say, oh, but this study does say, But the bottom line is, if it's not healthy for me and I have a craving for it to the point where I'm nervous if I don't have it, that's 100% the Yetzer Hara. It's, look what it causes me to feel. It causes me to feel angry. It causes me to feel, nervousness if I don't eat this particular item. There's definitely Yetzer Hara over there.
But it's releasing sparks, so it's for the tikkun of you, or?
It's both. There's a nefesh part inside. It's not a neshama. It's a nefesh, which is the lowest level of the soul. The soul has 5 levels. It's the lowest level that the nefesh is. When souls are reincarnated, they can be reincarnated in a person, in an animal, in a food item, in a plant, in whatever. It depends on what the tikkun is. I don't really study the gates of reincarnation, but the Arizal speaks about that in the book Gates of Reincarnation. And what basically it says over there is that when that nefesh has a particular tikkun, it goes into the wheat, and the wheat then becomes the flour, and then it sits on someone's table. Now, if we don't say a bracha with kavana, that neshama, that part of the nefesh, it has to now go all the way back up, and it has to again go through the whole process of the wheat and the flour until it falls into the hands of somebody that could redeem it. So it's the holy spark there, and we're going to soon see how we also get a part of that holy spark. So what happened? Tana Devei Eliyahu, the beautiful sefer. What do they write there? All creatures descend to sorrow only because of eating and drinking. The root of all transgression is because of improper eating. And we're going to soon see how much it really, really affects us on a spiritual level. And why is it? Let's look at Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon, we have to always go back there, because that's where it all began. Adam HaRishon partook of the fruit. Now, he was sent into this garden in order to guard it, in order to work it. Hashem said, listen, enjoy, have fun, eat every fruit you want, but don't eat this one particular fruit. Now Hashem, it's not that he doesn't want us to enjoy. He wants us to enjoy everything. But we're going to talk now. I'm going to jump a little bit. We're going to talk now about the difference between having pleasure and receiving pleasure. Having pleasure means that I want to experience right now pleasure. I want to know what it feels like to be, I want that piece of cake. It brings me pleasure right now. Receiving, it's a disconnection between that, what the product, the pleasure is not in the cake. The pleasure is in me having the cake, okay? I don't see anything in that cake in particular that I want, but I like the way I feel after I eat that cake, okay? When I engage in receiving pleasure, what am I actually doing? I'm doing something that as a result of that, I'm going to get pleasure. Now here, when I'm eating the cake, I'm receiving pleasure from my body, but I'm receiving the type of distorted pleasure because I know that ultimately it's not good for me. But if I'm doing Hashem's will, by Hashem telling us telling Adam HaRishon to be in the garden and guard it and watch it, what did Hashem want to do? He didn't say don't enjoy the fruits that are there. He says, I want to give you a higher pleasure. I want you to receive a higher pleasure. Not that momentary, that transitory, transcendent pleasure. No, I want to be able to give you me, a part of me, so to speak, to connect to the ultimate good, and through that, by you listening to my will, by you adhering to what I have to say, you're bonding with me. With that, you're going to be able to sense and receive this ultimate level of pleasure. But Adam HaRishon sought pleasure independent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He saw the tree and he thought randomly to himself, you know what? I want to experience pleasure. Something that Hashem didn't tell me that I have. For me, it's pleasurable to eat that fruit. It doesn't matter if Hashem told me not to do it. So how many times do we, as mankind, I want to zonk out for a moment. I want to go to the movies. I want to sit in front of the football game and I want to eat popcorn. That brings me pleasure, but that's having pleasure. That's pleasure that's independent of receiving it from a higher source. So again, what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. We're just robbing ourselves from the connection, and we're the real bad part about it all is the long term. We're desensitizing ourselves from being able to sense Hashem in our lives. That's what's wrong with going to a movie. That's what's wrong with gluttony and indulging in food products without no end. I want cake, I want Doritos, I want this, I want that. Oh, it's, I want to munch and so it makes me calm. No, go to Hashem. There's other alternatives, but we go to something that's independent of Hashem. We're severing and slowly severing our ties from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what we feel is long term. And that Rabbi Nachman teaches us over and over again. The Likutei Moharan is filled with this over and over again. You want to reach a high level? You want to reach a high level? Eat like a tzaddik. Because eating is so coarse in nature. A food item is so physical in nature that when I eat it, what is the idea of eating? The idea of eating, what do we call food in the Hebrew language? We call it lechem, bread, because bread is like the staple food item, right? We say on bread and on water a person can live. Lechem has the same connection to the word lochem, to fight, to be in battle. Because when a person eats, he's in battle. Why do they say a tip for Shalom Beit, right? When your husband comes through the door, you don't start bombarding him. Oh, honey, what they did to me, and the bank called, and you didn't bring up the milk, or you don't start Can I offer you something to eat? Can I offer you something to drink? As he's walking through the door, drink, tea, coffee. What can I get you? Cake, pomegranate? Please have a seat. Why? Because a man is very, very, I don't that's the nice, very bodily in his form, right? He's filled with his physics. So the idea is to feed him so that he doesn't feel, we can lower down his negativity, we can lower down his anger, animalistic part that affects every single one of us when we don't eat. When when a person doesn't eat, they're so nervous. And when you eat, it's like they're eating like this. When you're so hungry, you're eating. It's literally, my husband has this saying, it's so funny. Since I was 18, he just keeps saying the same saying. He says, I look at food as my enemy. I have to attack it and win it over. And it's so funny because that's exactly what it is. Food is like the enemy. You have to eat it, you want to consume it, and you take such sentiment to it. It becomes like, wow, it's my food. And someone wants to touch it? No, don't touch my food. It's my food. We're so protective of our food. So the whole idea is when the husband comes in, you want to feed him, you want to calm his nerves down, because it's written in the Tanya Kadosh, something very beautiful. Let's look at this. We don't have any more the Mizbeach. We don't have any more the Bes Hamikdash. Our table is the altar. The food is our korban, is our sacrifice. Now we're going to soon talk about salt and its spiritual properties of why it's so important to have salt. But the Tanya Kadosh teaches us that when a person goes to eat, you know what happens? Because we are so involved with something so coarse and materialistic, that the Sitra Achra means the other side, hovers over the table and knows that because we're so engaged in something so physical, we're so animalistic, we're giving so much cook to that animal part of us, that it has a lot of power over us, which is one of the reasons why when a person eats, they become very negative, very angry, they're very selfish. Like we said, don't take my food. If you ask them to pass the salt while they're in the middle of eating something, they'll make you wait because I have to finish what's in my mouth. I'm enjoying the worst characteristics come out when a person's eating, and that's because the Sitra Achra is hovering over the table and is taking charge of us. I'm going to give a tip.
Sorry, why is it hovering over the table?
Because we're so involved in something so physical and so coarse. I'm going to give you a tip now how to push it off. Whenever you're involved in food, be prepared for a war. Lechem from lechima. It is wartime. Did you ever see people, a bunch of very nice American, very, polite people, they're all standing in line, but when it comes to the buffet, everyone gets very agitated if, God forbid, you cut them on the line. Waiting for the bus, for the bank, we're all but when you're waiting, what?
Kiddush.
Oh, yes, there you go. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Think about it.
When you mark to sit, go. Everybody's flying away.
Everyone thinks there's going to be no more kugel left. That's it. We've got to go get that last piece of kugel. You got the kugel? Oh, I hope there's more when I'm there. And so now we understand, because the Yetzer Hara takes such hold of us. No, I'm eating for spiritual pleasure. I'm eating to give myself koach. I'm eating to give myself koach to serve Hashem, and that's how I have to look at the whole idea of food. So what's the little eitzah? The eitzah to try to get the Yetzer Hara off the table per se, to neutralize its power. Two things. One, put salt on the table. What does that mean? Salt is the epitome of gevura. We could tell this when we look at putting salt into the challah. What did we say? One of the things you daven for, one of the mystical meanings of salt, is when we put salt into the challah, we ask Hashem, please guide us to live with proper boundaries. Because gevura, salt is one of those things you cannot add too much of. It has to be in the proper midah, in the proper proportion. You put too much salt, the dish is gone, right? Not so much with sugar or with anything else. You could still eat it, but with salt, it's like yuck. All you do is taste the salt. So one of the things that melach, that salt symbolizes for us is the idea of boundaries. Living with a certain gvur, with a certain structure. Now, look how beautiful. How does the salt derive? It's derived through the method of gevura, through the method of harshness. Why? The sun, the fierce sun, beats down on the water. It's a derivative of water. It beats down on the water, and then you get salt. Look what the water has to go through in order to produce salt. Such harshness, such difficulty. Salt, the physical substance of salt, is total gvura. Yet, if I put it on my table, and I mix it in with my food. Now, it doesn't mean I necessarily have to add salt to my food, but the fact that I'm putting salt on my table in a place of chesed, the mizbeach is right here. I'm acting properly. I'm trying to focus and say my brachas properly. It's a place of chesed. It changes the makeup, the DNA of the salt, and now it becomes chesed when it sits on my table. So the idea of when I have salt on my table, it increases chesed into my table. What used to be harsh judgments, what is the purpose of salt? Salt, you don't actually put salt in order to want to feel the salt. The purpose of salt is when it gets absorbed into the food, it brings out the flavors of the other items. So the challah, when my husband and I use the challah, when we eat challah on Shabbat, what we actually do is we take a container and we put olive oil and zatar. Everyone know what zatar is, right? That thyme, right? So we take the challah and we dip it in the oil and then in zatar, which is mixed with salt. There's also an inyan about keeping that on the table all week long because it's a symbol of Shabbos and you should keep it on the table. It brings bracha to the table. So that's another thing. If anybody chooses to now adapt this whole, olive oil zatar thing, keep it on the table all week long.
And whenever you that.
Oh yeah, There's an inyan. It's a symbol of Shabbos. Yeah. So salt in general should always be on the table. Always, even the table is totally stark empty. Always make sure there's a thing of salt. Even more so when you do birkat hamazon. Okay, always make sure there's bread on the table because bread is the vessel that takes in all of the shefa. You cannot. It is actually halacha. You cannot say birkat hamazon without bread on your table. I mean, you can, but it's like Hashem said, what are you saying the bracha for? You have to have a symbol of what you're saying the bracha for. But now let me teach you something new that I just learned. The bread that you bring to the table, let's just say I had a whole bread of challah and the challah is gone now at the end of the table. What bread do I bring to the table? What do most people do? They bring a whole loaf of bread onto the table, so I should have bread on the table. Rav Mansour Shlita brought down in one of the halachas I just read recently that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't bring a whole loaf of bread onto the table. And why? It's a pagan ritual. Just like, I'm going to go a little bit off topic because I think this is also important. For everyone watching out there, please do not put candles on your cake, on your birthday cake, because that is also a pagan practice. If we're already talking about food, this is a very good opportunity. And it has to do with the bread. That's why I'm bringing it in right now. It used to be that the pagans, when they would see the moon, the full moon, what they would do is they would worship the moon. You can Google this. You'll find this on Google. When they would see the full moon, they would want to celebrate the birth of the moon. So they would bake a honey cake, a round honey cake, so it would reflect the shape of the moon. And they would put candles on the cake, and they would put it on their altar. So the whole idea of putting candles on a cake is 100% pagan. So we have to know, first of all, no candles on cakes anymore. We do so many things that we don't realize are so goyish that when you start to think about it, you're like, what? Like when I learned that New Year's Eve is the bris of Yeshka, I thought to myself, what? I'm celebrating. I'm drinking wine. I'm drinking and getting drunk. Not me, but people are drinking and getting drunk, and they're celebrating the bris of Yeshka. Okay, for non-Jews, but Jewish people, that's what we're doing. Hello. Okay, so I just feel like I have to get a little mussar in here. So salt and bread. So why did I say that? So when you bring bread to the table, don't bring a whole loaf because that's the same idea of the cake. You don't want to bring a whole loaf. It's as if you're worshiping a whole loaf. You want to bring a half or a piece of bread or crumbs, whatever, but don't bring a whole loaf in order to not, God forbid, fall into that. So that's another thing. Okay, so the salt. So now going also into halacha. I don't know if everyone knows, but it's halacha to say Mayim Achronim Chova. Does everyone know this? Women, men, Ashkenaz. So a lot of people do not know it, but a lot of people think it's only Sephardi or it's only men. It's halacha to do Mayim Achronim Chova. I'll explain to those who don't know. It's to take water. It's very important that first of all it be the water goes into. It's only for the fingertips. It's important that it goes into a kli. Not into the sink, but goes into the kli. That water later, there's a little container thingy that goes around, and then it has to be taken off the table. It's not allowed to sit on the table, and if it spritzes around on the tablecloth, you have to clean it off because it's mamish, like poisonous for us. We shouldn't touch it. It's mamish poisonous. So the Tanya Kadosh teaches us, by us doing mayim achronim, we're as if throwing the dog a bone. We're throwing the sitra achra a bone, and we're saying, shoo, this was a mizbeach I just ate on. Shoo, you have no right to be here. We as if pacify him, and we neutralize the power that he has over us by doing mayim achronim. How important it is, so that we understand that's how we can get rid of the sitra achra that's hovering over our table when we eat. Okay, now let's go into the nitty-gritty. The stomach and the emotional and spiritual aspect. Totally mesmerizing. The whole idea of the stomach is to discern, to choose, to digest life's experiences. This is emotional. Let's see how we are balanced with us in our stomach and how healthy we are in our stomach. It comes from the whole idea, the spiritual, emotional aspect of the stomach is how well do I digest the circumstances of my life? And do I have a problem consuming that which I have? Or am I constantly looking for more? What did we say? The spoon that's constantly filling up the next spoonful. I didn't finish yet. I'm still shoving it in, shoving it in, shoving it in. That's in essence the wicked, right? The wicked that wants to constantly craving more, not satisfied. A healthy stomach comes from a person who's innerly satisfied. He's satisfied by that which he is consuming right now. When I do a bracha, it puts me into the now. I'm focusing only that which is in front of me that I'm eating. I can't say a bracha on etz when I'm eating mazonos. I have to focus first on the etz. Hashem is saying, Baruch atah, I'm here right now in this fruit. This is what you need to focus on. Don't look at what's going to be after or next or after dessert, drink, what's there to, coffee, tea. No, I'm eating this right now. This is what I need to focus. It brings me back to the present. And where is life? Life is only here. But wait a minute, it's here. But as I'm saying here, it's already in the past because the word here is already now in the past. Life is in the present. I have to constantly focus on what I have right now. In fact, as they say, the one who says, what am I going to eat tomorrow, is a kofer. They said, the Tanya, the Chazal teaches that a person is a kofer. Why? First of all, who says I'm going to live tomorrow? How dare I even say, how am I going to pay the rent tomorrow? Do I know if I'm going to wake up in the morning? I'm already assuming that I'm going to be alive tomorrow. And that I'm going to have, nothing's going to go wrong in my life, God forbid. And that my whole mindset is going to be on paying that bill again. Wait, maybe something else will happen tomorrow. My mind will be drifted and I won't even be thinking about it. Something more important, God forbid, something tragic, maybe something great. And then I won't even remember about it. So the whole idea of thinking about tomorrow already puts us in that place of heresy. It already assumes, first of all, that I'm going to be alive. And second of all, wait a minute. Enjoy now. You have food in the refrigerator for tomorrow. You have milk for your... What already are you already thinking about for tomorrow? So the whole idea of the bracha is to be looking at now and consuming and focusing and digesting that which I'm involved in right now. A person who has a healthy stomach physically is a person who has openness to the ideas of the world, understands, okay, things aren't going like I want right now, so I'm going to move on to the next thing. It's fine. They're sort of flowing. They're going with the flow of everything. They're not getting beaten up. They're not getting absorbed and consumed within themselves. They're actually able to process things. They're actually able to grind things up to the little itsy bitsy particles and be able to nourish themselves. Now look how beautiful. Look at constipation. Constipation is a physical manifestation of someone emotionally who doesn't allow themselves to be nourished, who doesn't allow themselves also to discard the waste. So a person who suffers from constipation, in this generation, a lot of people suffer from constipation. We have to look and see on ourselves emotionally, am I holding something back? Do I not want to let go of my garbage? Do I not want to emotionally, do I have a problem letting go of that which is not good for me? So, that's just as a side note, something very, very important. So the whole idea of when the stomach has problems, we become very critical, we become depressed, we become discontent. A person who has stomach ailments is an overthinker, someone who's thinking too much, a person who's repressing, which is where the constipation comes from. a person who feels that they're treated unjustly. It's this whole idea of not being able to digest that which I have. So very, very remarkable when I thought about that, about really how the whole thing is connected to one another with our psychological aspects. And if you really look at it, most of the times when we do eat, it's from psychological drives. Very, very rarely do we eat out of, physical drives. Most of the times we eat bored, social, not wanting to feel left out, just curiosity, how does this taste? It's very rarely is it due to our actual pains, hunger pangs. Okay, so we spoke about the salt. Now let's look at the apple. Today I had an apple. I'm never going to look at an apple the same way. Do you have an apple? Okay. So something very, very beautiful. We're going to cut open an apple. We're going to see Yud K Vav K inside an apple. And this is what Hashem does. Hashem hides his signature like an artist that hides his signature on a painting. You know that this artist created this painting by the way that it's drawn out or painted out. The same way we can see Hashem in every part of food item if we really and truly look for it. But in particular with the fruit and the vegetables of the earth, because that's all 100% wholesome. So anyway, okay, till we get the apple. So I'll just talk about it. So the Zohar Kadosh teaches us that you have the four letters, right? The Yud, the K, and the Vav and the K. Where's the Yud? The Yud is in the points. If you cut open an apple, we all know there's a 5 spoke, right? So there's 10 points. Or where the pulp is, the 10 dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's 10. That's the Yud. The K is in the 5 pockets. The Vav is in the stem, and the other K is in the seeds, the 5 seeds. So you actually have Yud K Vav K inside of an apple. It's okay. We don't need the apple.
She's coming with it.
Oh, okay. So we'll take a visual on it. So the bottom line, I was looking at the apple today, and I felt like eating it just because I thought about that. I thought to myself, I'm connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in like the most clear way when I'm eating an apple now. You can look at food so differently when you learn of really the whole spiritual essence. And so
keep the
Yetzer Hara away, right? Instead of the doctor away. That's 100%. Okay, so we spoke about the whole idea. Okay, so do we see food as a bridge, as a spiritual opportunity to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or do we see it as just physical gratification? That's the question that we need to be asking. And it's all beautiful to be able to want to enjoy the food. Hashem said, enjoy the fruits of the garden. There's no problem. You can enjoy the fruits of the garden, but you don't eat just for the sake of eating. You eat for the sake of spirituality. You eat for the sake of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay. Right? Oh, the stem is missing, but the stem, right, is the Vav. And okay, you missed it, Tzipi, right? I think so. We have to. Oh, sorry. I guess I don't know how to cut right in the middle. Hold on. Why don't I see the? Is it just me? I keep cutting and cutting, and I don't see it. Huh? Oh, no, here it is. Here it is. No, it is. It's right here. Right? So we have, well, no, it has to be cut a little bit more. I keep having to cut this apple. Okay, no, but here. So we see this. So there's 10, okay, the Yud is 10, right? So there's 10 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? 10. That's the Yud in the Yud K Vav K. And then the first K is in the pockets, right? There are 5 pockets where the seeds are hiding, right? And then the Vav is the stem. And then the other K, the other 5, is in the actual 5 seeds. That's Yud K Vav K in every apple. That's Hashem's hidden signature in every apple. And that's just one thing. That's just one thing. The whole idea is that Hashem is hiding in there's a spiritual aspect in every part of every product of nature. So again, let's talk about brachas for just a minute. The bracha is to bring Hashem into our lives. It's to invite Hashem. It's to express gratitude. It's this idea where, again, in this month, we had the idea to digest everything that Hashem is giving me. Even though I'm feeling void, even though I'm feeling empty, even though I'm feeling like I've been robbed from my life, I need to digest the goodness that I'm eating right now. I'm right now enjoying this cup of water. I'm right now enjoying this tea. I'm enjoying this cake. Thank you, Hashem, for the now, for the right now. It's all, Emuna is all about what I have right now. Again, everything in Tu B Shvat teaches us, it's not what I see. You don't see anything blooming on the trees, and yet everyone on Tu B Shvat is sitting and having all of the fruits, 30 fruits, right? We all know this. 30 varieties of fruits have to be on the table, the Arizal says, to bring down all the shefa, so that we should have Bezrat Hashem. Bracha, anybody who has knee problems, bracha comes from the root word berech, knee. When we say a bracha, we kneel down to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We thank Him. We show our appreciation. We show our love. We show our gratitude. Thank you, Hashem, for taking care of me, for bringing me this apple. It's so nourishing to me. It's so beautiful to me. It's exactly what I need. It's exactly 100% that which I need. And funny enough, we said this last year, whenever a person's hungry, imagine a little bell, ding-a-ling-a-ling, ringing from up from Shemayim. Hashem is saying, you've gone away from me just for a little bit. I need you to come back. Eat something, drink something, say a bracha, and invite me into your life at that moment. That's the whole idea about the bracha. It's to show gratitude. It's to show thankfulness. So a person who has problems with their berach, with their knee, needs to pay attention to the brachas. It's in a direct connection. The spiritual repair for a bad knee, one of them is to say your brachas properly. More so, shloshet regalim, the 3 regalim, regel, leg. A person who has problems with their legs should pay more attention to the way that they celebrate Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Because the 3 regalim are exactly, the tikkun of it is exactly for the legs. So there's spiritual repair in everything that we're going through all the ailments. And it's important for us to, of course, pay attention to all of that. Okay, I'm going to end with this. I'm going to take a little bit of a different perspective from what we spoke about last year. Now we're getting a little bit more into the Tu B Shvat. We said last year that and anybody, I suggest everyone to listen to the shiur from last year. It was very intensive. In fact, is now, right, we have the handout. Thank you, Zahava. We have the handout, which really talks about, on the Tu B Shvat page on the website, that talks about how to set up the Seder and the fruits for each world and so on and so forth. So we spoke about the 3 different worlds, right? Olam ha'asiyah, Olam ha'yetzirah, and Olam ha'briyah. And we're going to talk today just a little bit about how we can connect our struggles with the way that we approach the handout, which really talks about, on the Tu B Shvat page on the website, that talks about how to set up the Seder and the fruits for each world and so on and so forth. So we spoke about the 3 different worlds, right? Olam ha'asiyah, Olam ha'yetzirah, and Olam ha'briyah. And we're going to talk today just a little bit about how we can connect our struggles with the way that we approach our Avodat Hashem through the 3, just another angle onto what we learned last year, something new. So, each one of the fruits and nuts that we're going to eat on Tu B Shvat have to do with a particular type of struggle in our Avodat Hashem. Okay? Let's look at the first one. In the Olam Ha'asiyah, the world of action, this world that we are in right now, we bring in fruits that have a hard, inedible shell, right? But inside, they're edible, they're soft, and we can consume them. But they do have an inedible shell, okay? So we said the bananas, coconuts, pineapple, it's all written, of course, on the website. So now let's look at this. Let's look at a nut. A nut has a very, very hard shell, but yet it takes a lot of work, a lot of hard exertion to break it open. But when we finally do, immediate reward. We get straight to the nut. We don't have to go through any other layers or anything else. It's like you have to work really, really, really hard, but the reward is immediate. Let's give an example. Well, first of all, let's talk about it. So what does that mean? Let's look at let's associate it now with an act. It means I'm going to work on getting something, on achieving something, and yet it's going to take a lot of hard effort, but when I finally get to it, the reward is going to be immediate. I'm going to be ecstatic. What is that? I brought the example of Shabbat. Shabbat, we have to work very, very, very hard. We have to not sleep sometimes Thursday night until really late and prepare everything and then be in a rush on Friday, making sure everything's done by the time the bell goes off and everything. Rush. It's a lot of work. It's cracking that nut open. But once Shabbat comes in, immediate reward. Right away, I feel Shabbat. I feel the relaxation. I feel the connection. You sink into your couch and you're like, Shabbat. So that's an example of something that, when we're talking about a hard struggle, some mitzvot are very, very, very hard for us to do. They're really hard for us to do. We have to work tremendously hard. But once we get there, once we crack it open, it's all smooth sailing. Smooth sailing. There you go. Right. A lot of things. Right. A lot of the mitzvot are like that. Okay, now let's go to Olam HaYetzirah. Olam HaYetzirah has a soft, right, world of formation, has a soft, it has an outer edible shell, a peel, but the inside is inedible. The inside of the pit inside is inedible. So I took, for example, the citrus fruit, right? The citrus fruit has a peel, but it's not so hard to peel. It doesn't take that much effort. You give it a little slit on the peel and you're able to peel it off. And this is where we're going to go back to what we spoke about. Then we get caught up in the fruit. The fruit is so yummy, so tasty. And then you hit that pit and you're like, yuck, what are you disturbing me? What are you bothering me here for? Right in the middle of the fruit, I'm enjoying it. And in the pit, like what? And that's us in this world. We have to work hard a little bit. We have to peel away those negative forces, those barriers, those things that get in the middle of our way. Then we finally get to be in that place where we're enjoying ourselves. We get to taste the fruit, and then boom, a pit comes along, and you have to spit it out, and you discard it when you don't realize that the whole idea of enjoying another fruit is in there in that seed. It's in that pit. You need that pit. You know what I mean? For you, it's an annoyance, but that's the whole purpose of the tree and the branches and the weather and the rain and the everything, is to have that fruit, have the seed, and so that I can take that seed and I can regrow and reproduce that fruit again. The example is a mitzvah that I'm doing that, okay, it's a little bit hard for me to do, but what's that pit? That pit is the gaiva. So I came up with the example. I don't know why I came up with the example. I felt it ties so greatly into this, was the person who sits when they sell the rights for the Torah opening, right? Right? So you have everyone bidding to give money to the Beit Knesset. And I was thinking to myself, that's like the ideal struggle to have to work on. Here you are in a shul filled with people. Now you want to give that. You want to give for that mitzvah. You do. You want to give for that mitzvah. You know it's going to a good cause. But you have to work on yourself. You have to peel a couple of it shouldn't be that hard, but you have to peel a little bit off of those layers of negative forces on you. And you have to, then you enjoy the fact that you won the mechraz, you won the ability to have the heichal be opened in your name. But then you have that gaiva. That gaiva is that part of you that's stopping you from really being able to enjoy. It's like, let me mellow in my gaiva. And then you get that pit. You get that seed. The whole idea is for us to work very, very hard on doing a mitzvah l'shem shamayim. It has nothing to do with gaiva. It has nothing to do with the benefit. The fruit is yummy. It's all tasty. It's all great. But just remember, that obstacle there is there to tell you you're not here to just enjoy it for yourself. You're here to enjoy it l'shem shamayim. You're here to enjoy. It's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be the one basking yourself in this fruit, basking yourself in the enjoyment of this fruit. You have to understand that pit is there to remind you that there's another reason for you being able to enjoy this, and that's to be l'shem shamayim. So that was just an idea that I came up with, but there's certainly many other mitzvot that would show a struggle of such as well. And last but not least, there's Olam HaBriah, the world of creation. And this is very interesting because we did say that the Olam HaBriah, which means that there's a fruit that's edible on the outside and on the inside, right? For instance, a fig, right? You can eat the whole entire fruit. There's nothing there to disturb it. You don't have to peel it. You don't have to throw away any pits. It's the highest level of being able to serve Hashem with no barriers, straight there. But on the other hand, many times what will happen is even with, for instance, the grape, where you can eat the seeds, or the watermelon, which you can eat the seeds, or, well, that was an example because it does have a peel. But for instance, let's say with the figs, there are seeds there. So the Avodat Hashem, even though there's no peeling and there's no barriers, that also in itself can serve sometimes as a total illusion to life. Because here we are, we're serving Hashem, and everything is smooth sailing, there's no problems, everything is going well, there's nothing to peel back, Hashem's not stopping me from doing anything that I want. I'm able to move forward on everything that I do. But on the other hand, we have to know that even within that fruit, there's still a part of it that you still have to break open. It's just hiding in there, and you don't see it. You have to still look for it. In other words, there's no place in this world where you're allowed to be just stagnant and just say, Hashem must be really happy with me because everything is going really well. There's nothing there. There's no barriers there to stop me, not outside, not inside. But there's still a part of that fig that needs to be taken out in order to allow for it to grow. And so we have to know that even though we think that we've gone through all the barriers and Hashem is very happy with me, you still have to always be willing to work on yourself and investigate within yourselves and know that there's still work to be done. To end off, the angel of the month is the angel of Gabriel, which is the angel of might. Because it is in this month that we have to overcome the most difficult task, and that is the power of getting over the indulgence of eating l'shem shamayim. And like I said before, Rabbi Nachman says, if you can eat, if you can elevate yourself through spiritual eating, if you could just bring yourself to that point where you can eat l'shem shamayim, you have elevated yourself to the point of being able to be called a tzaddik. Because again, it's the most coarse nature activity that we are involved. It's the activity where body and soul meet together. It's that one activity that is so material in its nature that if we can take it and elevate it and look at it as being something for spirituality purposes by saying a proper kavanah, by redeeming those sparks. Oh, going back to answering your question, the sparks, how do I elevate those sparks? When I say the bracha, I elevate the sparks that are inside the nefesh that's embedded in that food item. But when that piece of food now is in my body and it's digested and becomes part of me, that strength that I use because of the nourishment that I got from that food item, that also ascends up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I'm able to now also redeem my personal sparks when it's inside of me, and I'm also able to redeem those sparks inside of every food item when it's on the table and I haven't yet consumed it by the kavanah that I say on the bracha. So be'ezrat Hashem, let's remember that hardships do not last forever. That even though we don't see the flowers on the almond tree, which the almond tree is the first to bloom in Eretz Yisrael, just know that it's receiving all of its sap and it's receiving all of its nourishment. And Hashem is with us, and all we have to do is sing. All we have to do is sing, and then we're going to see Be'ezrat Hashem, the sea split open, and I daven for all of us Be'ezrat Hashem.